Chris Cillizza is a CNN host, contributor, whatever you want to call him. And he is, without a doubt, one of the dumbest people on TV. And that's saying a lot because there's a lot of dumb people on TV. I have no idea how this guy got a job. I have no idea how he keeps his job. But this, by the way, he is the best evidence of the rigged algorithm on YouTube. I used to kick CNN's ass on a regular basis when the algorithm was more of a meritocracy. Well, now, since they changed it and prioritize authoritative news, they force-feed you the kind of garbage that you're about to see here. Here is Chris Cillizza, the world's dumbest pundit, telling you who the 2024 Dems are who may be able to replace Biden and have a shot. This is really something.
Kamala Harris. Asked by the Wall Street Journal recently whether she thought Joe Biden would be running again, the vice president said this, quote, "I'll be very honest, I don't think about it, nor have we talked about it," end quote. Which, well, that can't be true. While Harris has undoubtedly struggled as vice president, she's still the most likely Democrat not named Joe Biden to wind up as the party's nominee in 2024, thanks to not just her name identification advantage over the rest of the field, but also her demonstrated polling strength among black voters, a critical Democratic constituency. Pete Buttigieg, he, to me, seemed to be the most naturally talented candidate in the 2020 field. Mayor Pete, who is now the Secretary of Transportation, has also been front and center selling Joe Biden's infrastructure bill, a popular piece of legislation to have your name attached to. And yet, polling shows that problem with supporting the all-important black community that plagued him in 2020 doesn't appear to have improved much, if at all. And that's a big problem. Elizabeth Warren. The Massachusetts senator is still popular among liberals and wouldn't be splitting the vote with Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders this time around like she did in 2020, given that we don't expect Sanders to make a third run for president. But Warren hasn't expressed much interest in a return bid of her own and said earlier this year that she plans to run for re-election to the Senate in 2024. That said, her response about Biden to the Times, quote, "He's running, I expect to support him and help him get reelected, I'm sticking with that story," end quote, did raise some eyebrows raised. Amy Klobuchar. Other than Buttigieg, I thought the Minnesota senator came out of the 2020 campaign looking the best. And her Midwest roots are always a plus given what we expect the electoral map to be. Klobuchar campaigned in Virginia this year with former Governor Terry McAuliffe and is doing very little to knock down talk that she's interested in a re-run. Roy Cooper. Term limited out of office in 2024, the North Carolina governor has ample time to consider his next step, starting with his service as the chairman of the Democratic Governors Association in 2022. Hailing from what will likely be a swing state in the next presidential election could be a major argument in Cooper's favor. But it's a very open question as to someone with as moderate a governing record as Cooper could win a Democratic presidential primary. Mitch Landrieu. Landrieu is tasked with dispersing the hundreds of millions of dollars of infrastructure funds approved by Congress earlier this year. Being tasked with implementing the infrastructure bill is a big and high-profile job that the former New Orleans mayor has taken to with relish. Delicious on a hot dog. And it's a very good job to build goodwill with key Democratic constituencies, too. Going from that job to a White House run might seem like a stretch, but remember that Buttigieg's past experience prior to running in 2020 was as mayor of South Bend, Indiana. And New Orleans is a heck of a lot bigger in terms of population than South Bend. Gina Raimondo. So Raimondo made the leap from Rhode Island governor to Biden administration commerce secretary, but as with Roy Cooper, doubts remain as to whether she is too moderate to win a Democratic primary. She's also not all that well known. Gretchen Whitmer. The Michigan governor needs to win what could be a tough re-election race next year before she can turn to considering a national run in earnest. But if she does win in 2022, Whitmer will have a demonstrated appeal in what could be one of the swingiest states in 2024, a not insignificant feather in her cap. What happened to my cap? Phil Murphy. The record of New Jersey governors running for president isn't great of late. Sorry, Chris Christie. And Murphy did just win a second term by a much smaller margin than most analysts expected. The important thing, though, is that he won, and he can use the next few years of his governorship as a policy and political testing ground. J.B. Pritzker. Pritzker has two things going for him. One, he's the governor of a major Democratic Midwestern state, Illinois. And two, he's very, very rich. Like Whitmer, Pritzker needs to get reelected in 2022 before even considering 2024. But unlike Whitmer, Pritzker sits in a decidedly Democratic state and is a clear favorite. Stacey Abrams. So Abrams talked openly about running for president in 2020 before ultimately passing on the race. This time she needs to win the Georgia governor's mansion in 2022 before thinking too much about 2024. And that is not going to be an easy or cheap task.
This guy is like conventional wisdom vomit spewing central. Like whatever he gets told from the higher-ups and the establishment and from other Democratic politicians, he just runs with it like a little sycophantic puppy dog. Bro, nobody knows more than like half the people on that list. Nobody, okay, wait a second. Let's go through some of these. This is great. Let's go from the top. So he brings up Kamala Harris as like the heir apparent. Yeah, notice he didn't mention, no, guys, throw that down. I don't need that right now. Hold on. We'll get to that in a second. That's his previous predictions, and boy, is that something else. So buckle up for that. But so Kamala Harris polled at 28% recently. Notice he brings up Kamala Harris and doesn't mention that she polled at 28%. Doesn't mention that in the 2020 race, she didn't even make it to Iowa. She dropped out before the first contest because her polling imploded. You would think that when you're bringing her up as the heir apparent, that maybe that would be, important context, but no. And then I love the argument for Kamala is, well, she polls well with black people. And then he shows a poll that has her 52% or something with black people, as if that's polling well with black people. Bernie Sanders polls higher with black people than Kamala Harris does. Did he bring up Bernie Sanders? No. Okay. He says, this is one of the best lines in the whole thing. Pete is the most naturally talented candidate in the 2020 field. Based on what? Based on what? You just made it up. You pulled it directly out of your rectum. Pete is the most talented candidate. Why? Because he talks the most like a fake politician made in a lab in 1993? Pete is the most naturally talented politician. Define naturally talented. No. This guy has never had an original thought in his entire life. Chris Cillizza. What a joke. The most naturally talented politician. Literally every person outside of D.C. and New York rolls their eyes when Mayor Pete starts talking. Okay. He says Elizabeth Warren is still popular among liberals. What? Now, by the way, these people use liberal and leftist interchangeably because they haven't even graduated to a slightly more sophisticated view of the political spectrum. But I don't know if you know this, Chris, but no. I don't know a single person in left circles who's like, yeah, Elizabeth Warren, right on. She blew all of her goodwill with the left in the last race. And by the way, she also performed. She couldn't even win her home state of Massachusetts in the last primary. You kidding me? She stabbed Bernie in the back and twisted the knife. Everybody saw that. Everybody witnessed that. Her campaign became weird and about identity-obsessed issues. She blew all of her goodwill. Amy Klobuchar, quote, I thought the Minnesota senator came out of the 2020 campaign looking the best. Chris, what are you basing any of this on? Looking the best to who? To you? You represent the opinions of a tiny sliver of elites. You don't represent the opinions of the American people. Again, Amy Klobuchar, go look at the numbers. How did she do? How did she do in the race? Her whole, folksy, I'm Midwestern and I'm real folksy. Maybe that would have went in 1986. It's not 1986 anymore. And by the way, it was Elizabeth Warren and Amy Klobuchar that had the benefit of a New York Times endorsement, and their campaign still absolutely plummeted and crashed into the side of a mountain. Then the real fun begins. Roy Cooper. Roy Cooper? Who the fuck is Roy Cooper? The governor of North Carolina, who roughly 7 people in the entire country know? There are people in North Carolina who don't even know who Roy Cooper is. Roy Cooper, what are you talking about? And I love his reasoning. Well, North Carolina is going to be a crucial swing state, so that's why you want to get a Democratic politician from the crucial swing state. I don't know where pundits get this conventional wisdom bullshit from, but I don't know if you know this. Donald Trump is from New York State. How'd he do in New York State? He got his ass clapped, son. He got destroyed. Al Gore is from Tennessee. How did Al Gore do in Tennessee in his race? He got obliterated. I just told you, Elizabeth Warren in Massachusetts got destroyed. So this idea of well, you're from the state, so you win the state. Or you just have another candidate who's actually good and actually interesting and charismatic and good on the issues, and that person can win everywhere. Okay. Then we got I don't even want to take time glorifying these names by even mentioning them on air. Mitch Landrieu. Mitch Landrieu's family doesn't even know who Mitch Landrieu is. Gina Raimondo, Commerce Secretary. Gretchen Whitmer, Democrat of Michigan. She's underwater. She's under 50% in terms of her approval rating. J.B. Pritzker, who's a bloated billionaire in Illinois who basically bought the governorship. I think he mentioned Phil Murphy there, the New Jersey governor, who barely hung on in a massive Democratic state in the last election. It was a bloodbath for Democrats. I don't know if you know this. There's some trucker dude who spent like a couple $100 on his race who unseated a long-term Democratic incumbent. That's how it went for Democrats in the last election. Phil Murphy barely hung on against some nobody Republican. And by the way, Phil Murphy also former Goldman Sachs dude. Of course, this is somebody Chris Cillizza would bring up. Then we got Stacey Abrams, of course. Stacey Abrams, who lost last time, but has been anointed one of the top Democratic brass, they bring up her. Look, the Democrats, as long as they keep doing this top-down manufacturing of candidates and like forcing it on the American public, you're always going to have these close elections with the Republicans. The Republicans should be comically easy to beat. Comically easy. I mean, a whole group of people that are solely committed to more tax cuts for the rich, more deregulation for corporations, and endless war, and all they do is bitch and moan about Mr. Potato Head and Dr. Seuss and have their culture war scandal du jour. You should be able to beat these guys in your sleep. I can beat these guys with 2 of my brain cells. Forget the rest of them. But the Democrats can't. Why? Because everything's manufactured. Everything's top down. Everything's the hand-picked candidates. And then they feed it to you through the propaganda machine of this dorky dweeb on CNN known as Chris Cillizza. So, God, this guy's... everything's conventional wisdom nonsense. Now, I kept you waiting, but now's the time I'm going to show you. Go ahead, throw up that graphic, guys, because this is the last time this numbskull made predictions. Here's what he thought here's the power rankings for the 2020 Democratic election. This came out, I think, in like 2019, he came out with this. Number 1, Kamala Harris. She didn't even make it to Iowa. She got obliterated. She was the favorite to Chris Cillizza. Number 2, Joe Biden. Well, he got that one kind of right. Got to give credit where credit is due, but it took all the king's horses and all the king's men and all the media system to prop him up. That's for damn sure. Number 3 was Beto O'Rourke. Beto O'Rourke, the saddest candidate I've ever seen in my life. The guy who was on the cover of every fucking magazine and got an Oprah interview and stood on tables for no goddamn reason. This guy cratered into irrelevance instantly as soon as he opened his mouth and started talking. Number 4, Elizabeth Warren. Number 5, Cory Booker. Guys, number 5 is Cory Booker. Number 6 is Bernie Sanders. Homeboy put Cory Booker in front of Bernie Sanders. He put Beto O'Rourke in front of Bernie Sanders. Then we got Amy, Julian Castro, Kirsten Gillibrand, and Sherrod Brown. Okay, let me explain something to you guys. If you do a power ranking and at any point you had Cory Booker or Beto O'Rourke in front of Bernie Sanders, that's it. You're done. You should immediately excise from national politics. For whatever reason, political pundit is like the one field where you could be demonstrably, verifiably, provably wrong about everything you fucking say, and still you're invited back to give predictions, to give another power ranking. Homeboy was wrong about everything. And they're like, we'd love to hear your thoughts on the next presidential race, Chris, please. Here's an open platform on CNN, which will be boosted by the algorithm. So you get hundreds of thousands or millions of views for your objectively garbage takes. Now do you see why I'm frustrated? Now do you see why I'm frustrated as a new media person who's been doing this for about a decade, who, you know, constantly is buried in this stuff up to my eyeballs. I try my best to give you guys predictions. Go back and watch. I've showed you guys the video before. Not to brag here, even though I'm going to brag here. I was one of the people who was sounding the alarm when we knew it was going to be Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump. The entirety of corporate media was like, ha ha, Hillary's going to obliterate Donald. Ha 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 ha. And I was one of the few people who was like, iceberg dead ahead. The guy's going to go after her corruption. He's going to attack her for being the establishment. He's going to posture as anti-establishment. He can win this race. He can do it. So my track record of predictions is way better than anything Chris Cillizza has ever done in his entire life, and we get buried by the algorithm. Our videos don't get shared to new people. There was a time when it was more of a meritocracy where they did, and when that was the case, we gained 30, 40, 50,000 subscribers a month. Now we gain like 500 subscribers a month because YouTube made a decision to actively bury interesting, independent, and new media voices. And that's what we're struggling with, and that's what we're dealing with. And so I got to come out here and debunk this guy's nonsense. And, you know, look, this video will get 1/10 the views that Chris Cillizza's dumbass video made. Think about the brain rot. the propaganda that CNN is imprinting in people's brains. And don't think this isn't changing the electorate, because they're force-fed this garbage nonstop, whether it's MSNBC, CNN, or Fox News, which is the Republican version of this garbage that you're seeing. Don't think it's not impacting people. It absolutely is impacting people. And we're trying our best to de-radicalize and open people's eyes. And we're running into a fucking brick wall because of the policies that YouTube chose to put into place. So for the love of God, now I'm randomly making this segment about this channel and myself, but for the love of God, if you watch the videos and you're not subscribed, hit the subscribe button. Share this stuff around, because there's no way to beat the algorithm. We got to try to beat the algorithm. You got to try to send it to people that you know. So like stuff, leave a comment. It helps boost it in the algorithm. Subscribe to the channel, whatever you can. If you can, throw a couple bucks on Patreon per month for us. That would mean the world. Or subscribe to Crystal Kyle and Friends on Substack. We take zero ad money for that at all. It's all small dollar donations, $5 at a time to get the video of the show a day early. But for the love of God, do what you can, because we're trying to be the antidote to this stuff. But look at the battle we're up against. They're boosting in the algorithm, and this is the garbage he's spewing. Motherfucker put Mitch Landrieu on a list for the Democratic president. Mitch Landrieu, Roy Cooper, Gina Raimondo. This list will be just as good or worse than his 2020 list. I can guarantee you that. He put Beto O'Rourke and Cory Booker in front of Bernie Sanders in a power rankings list for 2020. Look, this is not an issue about free speech or anything like that. No. This is about, can you do your job? If a surgeon comes into the room and their job is to operate on your brain and they start playing basketball, you go, oh, this isn't the job that you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be doing brain surgery and you're playing basketball. That makes no sense. You're fired. That would be the appropriate response to that. Here's a guy whose job is politics and news, and he comes in there and gets everything dead wrong. Instantly fired. Gone. In a world that made sense, in a world where it was actually meritocracy. Gone. But no. He gets propped up. He gets boosted. He gets gigantic paychecks. And he poisons the mind of the American electorate at the same time. God, man, it's so frustrating. But anyway, there you have it. This guy's a gigantic piece of trash. And, we laugh and we have fun with stuff like this. But, man, there are liberals out there who watch that stuff and they think he's actually providing something of value. I know it seems impossible, but it's real. And so it's an uphill battle we're fighting. But God damn it, Chris Cillizza, for the love of God, at the very least, just stop talking. Ever since Adpocalypse, when YouTube defunded all independent news and politics overnight, we haven't trusted them. We know they can pull the rug out from underneath us at any time. If you enjoy this content, please consider tipping $1 or $2 per month on the Secular Talk Patreon. Link in the video description box below. Thanks for your support.